Good evening and welcome to Unrestricted Invasion with your hosts, me, Brian O'Shea, and JJ Carrell. Episode 20, Season 2, March 4th, 2024. Today we are going to talk about war and the unleashing of monsters and how to stop them, and we have it all. Assassinations, possibly. Invasions at the border, a fifth column unleashed inside this country. Monsters that have been created to wreak havoc throughout our country. Well, one has to ask, when one unleashes such monsters, when someone creates such monsters, what then? What if they achieve their goals or they fail their goals? What about the monsters? And so there we are. This is a war. We are being invaded. And whether that's through elite capture, elite assassination, and or a fifth column being deployed and already having infiltrated this country, mainly through the border, but also in regions such as Maine and Washington State, you can bet by the end of 2024, whether Trump wins or whether Trump loses, which means it was stolen from him based on the polls, it's not going to be good. And at the same time, another danger that one has to think about, let's say the election is stolen, Biden sits in office. Well, how long do you think his health is going to allow him to sit in there? All hell's going to break loose, because what happens when people with these great plans, such as our useful idiots within this country, what happens when they create a monster to do their bidding? Normally, history has shown us, whether it was the Red Guard with Mao, or it is the mobs in France, or even BLM and Antifa, they lose control of them. Hakeem Jeffries can tell you this about Jewish Voice for Peace when they attacked his office in Brooklyn. So when you lose control of that monster you created, guess what? It's gone. And worse, how do we know that the people that think they control that monster, that mob, that fifth column, actually are in control? Or are those puppet strings long enough to reach back to the People's Republic of China? I'm going to bring in JJ Carrell, my exalted other host, and there he is. JJ, welcome. Basketball season's over. You're in full swing.
Well, let me tell you something.
Tell us what's going on, man.
Okay, before we start talking about McConnell, Schweizer, the Chao family, I have some great news. We won our last basketball game.
Congratulations.
Brian, I'm going to take 1 minute to explain how amazing this was. Everything clicked on these kids' head. We were losing 11-2 at the end of the first quarter, sixth grade boys basketball. And I tell them, I was raging mad. I was like, you know why they're beating us? It's because you're lazy. You're not hustling. They're out hustling you. And there's nothing worse in sports than being out hustled. And all I said, we usually break a huddle. I said, no breaks. It's time for you to be a man. Man up and get out there and play. I don't know what happened. They went out there and played. All of a sudden, it's tied at halftime. We go to the fourth quarter. It's 23-23 with 45 seconds left. They're dribbling the ball up the court. Our guy steals it, goes down, shoots a layup, misses it. The guy gets it, puts up rebound. Boom, we're up by 25, 17 seconds left. They drive down. They shoot. They get fouled. He shoots 2 foul shots, misses it. Our guy rebounds it. They foul him. He shoots 2 free throws. 2 in a row. We haven't made 2 all season, and he makes 2 in a row free throws, and we win. And Brian, knows the best thing of all was the kids went nuts. They acted like they just won the NCAA tournament, right? So in my mind, and we had to take a great team picture after, and that will erase all the bad games. And they will, in their brain, they'll just remember that awesome game they had in sixth grade. So all that pain and agony and wanting to shoot myself all season long, it was worth it for the last one. So it was good.
Wow.
Great Saturday.
And
good.
And I like the fact that you told them basically be a man, which is be who you are, like, and that
Yes.
got them, I'm guessing that got them so focused, and it's like all of a sudden, for the first time, probably in some of their lives, they're like,
Yes.
"Oh, this is what it's like to take charge and control my own destiny."
Yeah. And it was like it's really like they had epiphany. Like, oh, this is what I got to do. My son played great, hustled so much. It was just wonderful. Just wonderful. Then
Congratulations,
I come
man, and to
home.
all of
Thank
them.
you. Yeah, it was great. And you know what? Like you and I talk about this a lot. At the end of the day, I just want to spend time with my son. He has memories of me built in his brain now, and he won't remember. Like I can't remember all the stuff my father did, like practices, but I know that he was there. Like I can recall, oh yeah, my dad coached me, and that's powerful. That has great meaning and value. So that's all I do it for is to spend time with my son after games, go get a burger, sit there and talk, watch a
That's awesome.
podcast or something in the parking lot and just talk about life. That's more than anything. And then I come home and I dive into Mitch McConnell and I want to throw my computer against the wall. But
Well, why
it's
don't you tell us what you found? And by the way, please, from the entire audience, I'm sure, of our show here, Unrestricted Invasion, hats off to those kids. Make sure they know that the world is watching and the world is impressed. Our world, anyway.
impressed. I couldn't believe it. It looked like real basketball. It didn't look like, I don't know,
NPCs.
NPCs. Yes,
I
NPCs.
remember.
Even my two NPCs played good. It was unbelievable. They actually moved and were focused.
That's
It's like
awesome.
Free Guy. You ever see that movie Free Guy
I
with
did.
Reynolds? Yeah, they're the NPCs. But
Yeah,
so what did I
that's
find?
Marxist communist propaganda. But yes, I did see the movie.
Great. But when you and I talked offline before coming on, I sent you these articles. I said, "Hey man, you got to read this." Because Schweitzer came out. So Breitbart News is taking a lot of Schweitzer's book and
Who's
pushing it
Schweitzer?
out. I'm sorry. Yeah, Schweitzer is the author of many credible books. This
Peter
one,
Schweizer, yes.
Peter Schweitzer. So when I go, so McConnell, he got on my radar when he wrote in like 2018 Secret Empires, like
Mhm.
how, and on his cover, I'll be fair, he has Biden, Obama, but he also has Mitch McConnell right in the middle. He's as far as attacking like corrupt politicians, he doesn't give a rip. Where they're what side of the aisle they're on. If you're corrupt, I'm going to find you. He's coming out with a new book called Blood Money, and it's the subtitle "Why the Powerful Turn a Blind Eye, Why China Kills Americans." And man, I'm reading excerpts from his book, Brian, that are making me go, "Holy smokes! I didn't know that." Right? I
It's
did.
impressive.
It is. Can I just read one thing that there are
Yeah.
several things in
Actually, let
these
me give you
articles.
let me give you the floor here. Go ahead.
Look, there are things that he wrote just in two articles, right, that I read in Breitbart. But I want to read this, okay? Because this is insane. Insane. Think about what Brian and I have talked about many times on our podcast. Ukraine. Ukraine, we have as now 17 to 20 bio labs, United States of America, had bio labs on the Russian border with Ukraine. And Brian and I talk about, well, of course Russia's angry. They have American biolabs and military on their border. What if China was in Mexico? Well, we're about to find out because China is on our southern border in northern towns in Mexico. And let me just read this quote. I'm not really shocked many times in my life, but I read this and I forwarded it right away to Brian and said, "Holy crap, dude, you got to read this." And I'm going to read it to you. I'm looking on my other computer. This is a quote from Peter Schweitzer's book, Blood Money. Quote: "We all know the precursors, talking about fentanyl, come from China." And he continues, they're actually run by a Chinese company that is very close to the Chinese state. He said, explaining that the precursors, quote, come into a port, Manzanillo. We talked about that. It's the international port of Mexico. And, quote, moved to a town in northern Mexico. So what he's saying is the Chinese precursor of fentanyl that China moves through terminals, port terminals in Mexico, then they take those drugs and they move them north to a town in northern Mexico. And this is where the shocking, and that's hard to stomach, but this is where it is. And the quote continues, according to leaked documents from the Department of Homeland Security that I obtained, 2,000 Chinese nationals essentially operate as chemists, end quote. So Mitch McConnell's father-in-law, Mr. Chao, who owns Foremost Group, giant shipping magnate, ships all of China's state-run government's products in his shipping to a international terminal port in Manzanillo, Mexico, that is held by Hutchinson Holdings. Hutchinson Holdings has been already determined by U.S. government law enforcement to be smugglers, the main smugglers of fentanyl, as 90% of all fentanyl coming into Mexico comes into that port. And what Schweizer continues on that in this article and says, not only is that, but the Chinese government is moving from the terminals to the northern part of Mexico, where they're sending 2,000 Chinese chemists, basically biolabs, creating fentanyl and God knows what else. And the first thing that I read that chemist, not everyone, majority of people believe that COVID started from the West Coast and moved east. And I can attest to that because COVID hit my station. We had no idea what it was, but it hit my station on the West Coast in California. Are you telling me that it's improbable to believe that if I have 2,000 Chinese communist nationals in Mexico and they are chemists, that the COVID pandemic, whatever you want to call it, illness, was not pushed across our border? Again, I know Brian's going to come back on because I want to hear what he has to say about this, but I want you to understand this is not anecdotal evidence. This is not, well, maybe this, I'm telling you, I lived it. We had our cells packed. People were living in our cells for a month at a time. We had 200, 300 people in our cells that holds 125 people. We were taking all of these people because they were randomly saying, I feel like I'm dying, taking them to our local hospitals in Southern California. Those hospitals were calling me as I was a deputy patrol agent in charge of the station and saying, listen, you can no longer bring any of those people into the emergency room. You must go into the back of the hospital. We will set up a triage tent. Do not take those people out of your car, your squad car. Leave them there, and we will investigate them there. And I'm like, okay, why? Listen, Agent Carrell, we have no idea what they have, but they have something that we cannot identify, and it's scaring us to death, and we do not want to contaminate American citizens. And I'm thinking, what? So we did. We had people every day. We would do 5, 10, 15 runs, 20 runs to the hospital every single 24 hours in my station. Just one station out of 8 stations in San Diego sector. Now we have 7, but in 8 when I was there, 10, 15, 20 plus times to a hospital. They had no idea what they had. I had COVID from those people. I had no idea. No one even knew what COVID was. But I remember being in my bed for 4 days and I did not move. I did not move. And that was before we knew. So you're going to tell me 20,000 chemists on our border is not the same danger as, 2,000 chemists on our southern border is not the same as chemists, American chemists in biolabs in Ukraine going against the Russians? Man, oh man. Ryan, what do you think of that?
So I want to read something to you, and this is from the 1999 Unrestricted Warfare. Okay, and just so you know, this document came out in China. Okay, and somehow got released to the U.S. or stolen by the U.S. Who knows? But it's by Hao Ling and Wang Jianzhu. It was published in Beijing by the People's Liberation Army Literature and Art Publishing House, February 1999. And the entire premise of this was it was published prior to the bombing of the Chinese embassy in Belgrade by when Bill Clinton was in office. And it was really inspired by our success in the Desert Storm, Desert Shield. But based on what you're saying, I just want to read this to you. And this is just so people understand that unrestricted warfare pretty much has become the doctrine for how war is being waged against us today. And I was just having this conversation today with a reporter about how you look at warfare. So most warfare is fought for pretty basic reasons. Okay, resources, land, and resources, land, food. A conflict normally ends with a treaty or a negotiation, but when someone declares war on you, like for instance, when Iraq invaded Kuwait, they invaded Kuwait for access to the ports and the oil. When we initiated the second war in the desert, a big part of that, a lot of people don't realize, was to secure the gas stations in there. The only reason the French even got involved is because they had French/Russian owned gas stations throughout the Middle East that were reaping the benefits of all that oil. So when you look at China and why they would want to invade or take over the United States, people have to remember it wasn't long ago in the grand scheme of history, the grand timeline of history, that Germany was trying to take over the world. During the pandemic, there were entire civil wars where millions died in Africa. The West has been spoiled into thinking that war is a thing of the past. Well, it's not. And as an 11-year veteran, or as JJ is a 24-year veteran of the border, which is a constant war and a constant invasion, as he can attest to and does in his great book Invaded. War is upon us, but it's not. If you really look at war, not battle, people confuse battle and war all the time. The Chinese and the Indians had a skirmish in 2021, I believe, on their border with with melee weapons, meaning clubs, sticks, axes, knives. That was 2021. Why did they not shoot at each other? Because they didn't want to violate the ceasefire between the two countries. War is everywhere. And I've said this to everyone who's never been to war, been to combat, gone abroad beyond just a carnival cruise. War is all around you. The United States has been lucky that we have two giant oceans between us and the nearest enemy, or we used to. So with that said, when these two looked at, our success in Desert Storm, Desert Shield, they came to the conclusion, I'm paraphrasing a lot, that there was no way that the Chinese military could beat the U.S. military kinetically, meaning traditionally, arms, weapons, that sort of thing. So they say in their introduction, if we acknowledge that the new principles of war are no longer using armed force to compel the enemy to submit to one's will, but rather are using all means, including armed force or non-armed force, military and non-military, and lethal and non-lethal means to compel the enemy to accept one's interests. This represents change, a change in war and a change in the mode of war occasioned by this. So, just what has led to the change? What kind of changes are they? Where are the changes headed? How does one face changes? This is the topic of this book that this book attempts to touch and shed light on. And it is our motivation in deciding to write this book. Essentially, they go into saying, we got to change the way we're going to defeat the United States and the West. It's not like if we ever go to war, it's good to know this stuff. No, this has always been the plan. By 2049, China wants to be the global hegemon, which is also the 100-year official anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party. Now, remember, they live on the, if you go back to Sun Tzu or Confucius, the highest form of war is the one you win without firing a shot. So the other thing I want to read to you, and this talks to what JJ was just saying, is if you get to, this is page 145. I've read this book ad nauseum. I'm just I read this book literally once a month. So they go into, okay, so the war god has changed their face, they say. So how do we beat these guys? Well, they say first we need to list out all of the different types of warfare we can engage in and to defeat the United States. And a lot of it is kind of like Aikido. I mean, a lot of these methods are using our own momentum against us, but they go on to list the types of warfare. This is 1999. Now, as I read through this list, tell me you don't recognize this being engaged upon, this being thrown at us right now. Leading into this list is this one statement. This admittedly does not attain to domains spoken by Sun Tzu, wherein the other army is subdued without fighting. However, it can be considered to be subduing the other army through clever operations. It is very clear who was superior and who was inferior when comparing these two methods of operation. They had a historical example. This, however, only a thought. However, it is certainly feasible thought, and excuse the translation, it's as good as it gets. Based on this thought, we need only to shake the kaleidoscope of addition to be able to combine into an inexhaustible variety of methods of operations. And then here's the list. Military, transmilitary, non-military. Atomic warfare, diplomatic warfare, financial warfare, conventional warfare, network warfare, trade warfare, biochemical warfare, intelligence warfare, resources warfare, ecological warfare, psychological warfare, economic aid warfare, space warfare, tactical warfare, regulatory warfare, electronic warfare, smuggling warfare, sanction warfare, guerrilla warfare, drug warfare, media warfare, terrorist warfare, virtual warfare for deterrence, and ideological warfare. Any of the above types of methods of operation can be combined with another of the above methods of operations to form a completely new method of operation. So with that said, as you look at our world and let's focus specifically on this drug trade. The whole point of drug warfare, further into unrestricted warfare, is to not only take out a lot of the enemy and to take out the fighting aged men, because that's what the drug trade is pushed on the most, but also to overwhelm the enemy's public health systems. JJ, I'm going to put you back on the stage. I just want to hear your thoughts on what I just read, and does it sound familiar to you?
It sounds exactly what's happening today. It's exactly. Yeah. It's scary, isn't it?
It is.
Now
it is, and it's almost like they said take a few methods, and I feel at some point, maybe even during 2020, they said, "Screw it, let's launch them all."
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It feels like, but like you said, and the thing that struck me the most is you said, well, you quoted them. All of these can be combined, right? Why can't I send a pandemic out? Why can't I send fentanyl out? Why can't I send my soldiers out? Why can't you? Why can't you bonsai our markets by stealing our intellectual property, printing money, devaluing your money, so therefore we can make cheaper goods, the goods that don't work in America, and destroy all of your manufacturing. I mean, think of what's happening since the pandemic. We came to the realization, oh my God, China creates almost all of our pharmaceuticals. They make all the masks. We went hand in glove to China, the nation that injured us and killed all of us, and said, please, sir, can you give us some masks? And we actually believed that those masks would work. That's how. Look, man, I'm reading this article by Peter Schweizer, and I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking, Peter Schweizer says the drug trade, the Mexican cartels that are extremely powerful, are actually the junior partners to China. The junior partner to China. Brian, they're at our front door. And we opened the border and allowed them in. We opened our front door and said, come in.
Well, and not only that, JJ, prior to that, recordable back to 2014, 2015, I apologize. And I hate to use the New York Times as a source, but so no one gets into their conspiracy theory BS. If you look at the New York Times article I put up the other day, Operation Fox Hunt, which is a Chinese operation, supposedly a counter-corruption operation where people have been accused of ripping off, the People's Republic of China's government, are on this list. The list is massive. Okay, massive. And what happened was these Chinese agents were in and are in our country as we speak, and they're nabbing basically U.S. persons. So what's a U.S. person? A U.S. person is someone who's protected under Executive Order 12333. Yes. And what that means is they're here legally. They're not like immigrants or anything. They're just here on a visa or the tourist visa, something. But when they're in our country, they are protected by that executive order, supposed to be. Okay, so they're considered U.S. persons. They don't have voting rights or any of that, but they're here. It's like if you have a guest in your house, you're going to feed them, protect them, not feed them, but protect them. They still have to follow our laws and everything. Well, the Chinese government, basically unilaterally, in the cover of night, coming into our country, stealing people away, and they're ending up on trial in China. One of their major targets in the United States has been people at the Epoch Times or members of Falun Gong, who are, a lot of them are dissidents. Falun Gong is that peaceful practice of meditation and better living. And I'm not a Falun Gong practitioner, but if you read up on it, it's pretty innocuous, kind of seems nice. And they're also, after students who are here, Chinese students, to make sure they're in line with everything and to make sure they're towing the line for the Chinese government. And also, one of the things that Operation Fox Hunt did, they're sitting there operating, they get caught. Obama tells Xi, who at the time was vice president, hadn't been elected yet. No, I'm sorry, he had been. But he tells him, hey, we know about Operation Fox Hunt. That's very bad. Don't do that anymore. And Xi's like, sure. Okay, so what happens in October of Trump's last month, before the election? 9 of these guys get arrested. It's in the FBI files. It's on FBI.gov. And then I think you presented the story. What happened? Would they bust in New York, JJ? Remember, they tore it down.
Police station.
Illegal police station.
Illegal Chinese police station in America.
And do you know
That's
another
real.
thing they've been that's very real. It's very real. So it makes you wonder when you hear of things like back to the border, you hear like the Houston embassy, you hear Austin, you hear New Mexico trying to like ban guns and carry permits. If you follow the path of all of these gun bans and really soft on crime and prosecuting people for shooting illegal aliens that broke into their home.
Mhm.
It's almost like they're clearing the path for the invasion.
Yep. It is. It absolutely is. And then follow the money, right? So I'm reading Schweizer's excerpts. I mean, you and I talked about this. How do the Chinese funnel and fund all of their evil in America? Well, here's one way, as you pointed out, the giant marijuana groves all over the nation, Maine and in Oklahoma, just for example.
Cash crop.
Cash crop. Here's something else that Schweitzer talks about. And I've known this and I have researched this throughout my career. The number one problem the drug cartels in Mexico have is their inability to launder billions of dollars. So in Mexico, if you go into a cartel neighborhood, they will buy, like you go through a gated neighborhood and it has like 15 homes. Well, they might live in 3 or 4 of them, but they have turned the other 10, 11, 12 homes into literal vaults. So they have cash stacked all through the house because they cannot launder it fast enough. Now, here comes China. So now Schweitzer's saying they're actually using banks in China to launder their money. Why would you not? So you have the senior partner. They said they're giving pill presses to Sinaloa drug cartels at cost and why would China do that? Because they're coming back and getting money from those pill presses, and those pill presses are killing Americans. And no one is saying a damn word about it. You have people like Schweitzer are saying the Sinaloa cartel is the junior partner. Sinaloa cartel has directly and indirectly killed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people worldwide, and they are the junior partner? What does the senior partner look like? Dear God.
Well, and I want to point something out. Hold on just a second. So it's interesting that you mentioned the Bank of China, because in that article, and I think we learned this when we were looking at that real estate in New York. He says state-owned banks. Those state-owned banks are here in the United States. There's a couple branches, I think, in New York City. The money is being laundered right through them, right under our noses or in full view. And the other thing about the Chinese students, it's really interesting that he mentioned that the students, so people would think, well, students, how are they going to launder money? I'll tell you how. They have to do whatever the Chinese government says, because they actually have, I believe it's called the National Intelligence Law in China, where every citizen of the People's Republic of China is expected basically to spy when they are abroad. You belong to China, and you know how? Your family's back there. They will put your family out on the street. So like they had Chinese students who were tearing down posters of Shan Yun, the ballet that talks about the history of China, because the Chinese Communist Party doesn't want the real history of China out there. It's supposed to begin and end. Nothing was good until the Chinese Communist Party came along. So you see that kind of control over a huge, massive population. It's scary. And I'll say one more thing, JJ, and then I want you to tell me more about this, because you've been diving into it more than I have. Remember that the Chinese, so from my intelligence background, one thing we knew about is how our enemies conduct intelligence operations. Now, ironically, I had to go out and learn about the Chinese on my own. For some reason, we weren't being taught to take them as an adversary. Unpack that at another time. But they practice a method of intelligence collection that they refer to, I think, as 1,000 grains of sand. So what does that mean? They collect everything. We do more target-centric collection and analysis, as the term goes. The Chinese collect everything, a big vacuum, because you never know what might be useful.
Mm-hmm. They're our adversary, and we're allowing them to walk all over us. And what I want to, before we go to break, I want to focus on one more aspect of this explosive article. And of course, the media doesn't even touch it. Schweizer goes through and kind of explains why is nothing being done, right? Number one, he said he doesn't think the politicians want to get involved and upset the apple cart, so everything just keeps flowing as is. They don't even want to upset China, if you can believe that. And the other thing he says is very personal, meaning many of our politicians are already bought and paid for, and he uses Joe Biden. I thought I was, as you get older, the more you read, the more information you get, the more ignorant you realize you are, right? If you're honest, intellectually honest with yourself, you will make that assumption. And I'm admitting that. There are times where I'm reading, I'm just like, holy cow, how did I not know that? Why was that hidden? How did I not uncover it? Schweizer, I'll keep looking over, audience, because I'm looking at my other screen because I have the article up and I don't want to misquote him or misinterpret anything that he says. So I want to give you what Schweizer's saying about Joe Biden. Okay? He says the reason that so much of this flows through Mexico is the Sinaloa cartel. Okay? They are the kings of fentanyl, Sinaloa cartel. I'm quoting Peter Schweizer. They're the ones that are responsible for most of this stuff coming into America. However, there's a Chinese gang called UBG. UBG, end quote. And Schweitzer goes on and says it is headed by a man known as White Wolf. Okay, White Wolf over UBG. White Wolf has a business partner who sent $5 million to the Bidens in 2017. Doesn't explain what it was. And what it sounds like, Schweitzer says, quote, of course, it's never been paid back. And this is all well documented. Nobody disputes this. What is new, the new piece of the puzzle, is the link between this Chinese businessman who gave him, meaning Biden, the $5 million forgivable loan that they have never paid back, and White Wolf. So there's a connection between this man that gave $5 million to the Bidens for an unforgivable loan and White Wolf, the leader of a giant fentanyl gang in Mexico called UBG. And then let me continue this quote because it's powerful what he says. Quote, so this means the first family of the United States, there is 1 degree of separation between the Biden family and those who are providing this poison in the United States of America. Whoa. Are you kidding me? Joe Biden gets $5 million unforgivable loan and nobody asked, hey, dude, what are you getting from that businessman for $5 million? What did you do? Are you giving speeches like Bill Clinton at $500,000 a pop? No. So you have, as Brian says, the total warfare. All of the warfare that we don't think about, they're using. And one of the most powerful is they're poisoning our citizens in America, just killing them outright and using the Sinaloa cartel to bring it over by chemists that are creating the fentanyl right there in in Mexico. They're using Chinese students that should not even be here to funnel and clean and launder the money for the Chinese government. Holy smokes.
Well, I want to add one more thing to this if I can, JJ.
Yes.
So you may recall in January that there was this big to-do about U.S. and China. Let me just read it off PBS. The People's Broadcasting System, not our people. U.S. and China commit to tackling fentanyl trafficking. in a sign of cooperation amid differences. Okay, China so China basically went on and say, well, we're going to crack down on these illicit gangs in China, making this happen. We're going to help with that. Well, yeah, come on. The CCP is the gang. Anyone that knows anything about the CCP, they control everything. There are no illicit gangs operating in China unless Chinese government wants them to. I also got to say, those precursor ingredients, they come from the Wuhan Institute. That's where
Yes.
they're from. Okay. And like I said on the last episode, when President Trump shut down the border, not the border, all incoming flights and all that, all
Yep.
entry into the US at the beginning of the pandemic, fentanyl, and you can attest to this, you would know, didn't fentanyl seizures drop to like nothing?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
here you got
Well, why wouldn't
January.
you?
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
sorry. Go
you
ahead,
have
Brian.
this big dog and pony show of saying, "Oh, we're going to work together to fight fentanyl." First question would be, "Oh, now you're going to?" Well, it's BS because in September of 2023, China and Russia were at the Mexican military's birthday celebration right under our noses. Right under our noses, having a big celebration with the Russians and the Chinese, and I don't want to get into any like bad Russian type, like the left does or like the legacy media does. But what I am saying is, China and Russia are our allies. That's a publicly known fact. Russia pretty much does what China says or allows them to do. I don't think Russia loves it. I think they would break those shackles if they could, but that's the world we live in. And who are they going to align with? The Biden administration. And so what you have here is the perfect storm. You have this drug flow and weapons flow and fifth column flow, as the great Trevor Loudon would call it. And I agree with him. He's an incredible China expert and more of a Marxist communist historian and expert. But it's an army flowing into our country. And if I had to guess where command and control was, JJ, I'd probably say it's on the island of Cuba, where the Chinese have built a base in the last year. No one's talking about that.
No. We are a nation that has never been this vulnerable before, ever.
Yeah. But despite all the bad stuff, JJ, you seem to have a healthy glow to you. What's happening?
Because I have found a product that I can't use, but I think just being around it makes my skin glow, and that's Charlize. Charlize.com. Use the promo code unrestricted, and it's all natural. Here's the thing that is amazing. Like, I don't do makeup and I don't do face rinses, but my wife does, and my sisters do. And
I do.
And Brian does too. And that's okay, Brian. I know that you have certain feelings, and I'm, live your life, buddy. Live it to the fullest.
Yeah.
But what is shocking, and this is shocking, not as shocking as 22,000 Chinese chemists on the border, but Charlize came out and said, do you know that the FDA does not claim that any skin products are toxic if they stay below 49% toxicity rate? What? So when you see non-toxic face wash, that face wash or that concealer or that whatever skin product, it could have 49% of it is toxic. Even cancer causing toxicity on that. That is shocking. That is shocking. And what else I saw, which was, like we said, being knowing this information and not knowing it, is the skin is the largest organism on your body, in your body. I didn't even, it sounds, now that I read it and know it, it sounds, of course you should know that, but I didn't know that. That's incredible. So this product, all natural, buy it, unrestricted promo. Brian loves it. If it works on Brian, okay, this is the tagline. If it works on Brian, I'm 100% sure it's going to work on you. Yes. Look at that glow. Look at that, dude. Seriously, all joking
And my
aside.
surprise audience to know that I am 75 years old.
I was just about to say that. 75 and used to work out in the fields. 50 of those years of hard labor. Charlize,
I did.
boom.
Thank you, Charlize. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. So I wanted to talk really quickly. Speaking of invasions, we've had weird weather. I'm in the Hudson Valley in New York right now. Now it sounds like people here upstate sounds really nice. No, man, this is like where Ichabod Crane was born. It's gnarly. There's huge. I mean, seriously, like if you don't cut down stuff in the first week, it runs away on you. We call them weed trees because the weeds literally turn into trees here. You can't walk through it, and there's ticks everywhere. Now,
Really?
personally, I think, oh my God, like already, because we've had a week of warm weather, I, saw my trail camera, the foliage is down, because if you wait for the foliage, you're not getting through there. And I walked 10 yards to get my trail camera into the woods, very careful to step on things so they're not brushing up against me. Man, I get in,
Right.
there's like three baby ticks on me. Okay, three of them. Now I did take this one, and I'm experimenting where I wanted to see how long it would take to dye with mint oil. Okay, which is, my wife just said I'm really weird. But no, I do cover myself. I put that stuff in my soap and everything to keep the ticks off me. Because ticks carry Lyme disease. There's a report that just came out that they were used for like virology research. God knows what that means, but they're everywhere. Now, what's really, I just ordered another TWC wellness kit, emergency kit, because of this, because we have our emergency kit at the other house because we just were hosting some guests there. And I realized, oh man, I don't have it. Now, what's great in particular about that one, thank you, JJ. He's apparently more prepared than I am. Mine's on the way.
I love my kit. I have it with me all the time.
Our third one is on the way. So we're, I don't know why we have one in Brooklyn. There's other things in it. But in this particular case, doxycycline is a must have. And just focusing on that, what excited me about the wellness company was someone really thought about every possible thing that can mess you up. Okay, and doxycycline is what we used to use every time we go to Southeast Asia. When I was in First Special Forces, we get tons of doxycycline. You start taking that stuff before you go, because it's like the super like antiviral, like that thing wipes out everything. Okay, and the wellness company is one of the first kits that I see. It comes with doxycycline, among many other things. So that's why we promote it. Great doc. We know a lot of the doctors on there. Dr. Harvey Risch, very good friend of ours. Peter McCullough, probably the most cited doctor for patient care out there, who was treating COVID at the beginning with like mRNA solutions. And so some of the greatest minds have gone in, medical minds have gone into this and saying, what an emergency will people need? And I got to say, as a former, military man, you're a former border guy. God knows you've had more than your scrapes and bruises. I read your book. I mean, would you agree with me? I mean, they seem to have, they've thought of everything, I think, that they could possibly put in.
And they actually have a guide in there telling you when to use it, why you're going to use it, what's the outcome of it. It's great. It's like all in one.
Yeah.
I don't need to see a doctor.
It really is. And what's great about this is that we've seen, especially during the pandemic, you couldn't even get in to see a doctor. And in some cases, especially up here in New York, if you were unvaccinated or refused to show your vaccine status, which is no one's business but your own, doctors wouldn't see you. They wouldn't see you. And so what's great about the wellness company's various kits, they've got the preparedness kit, they've got the emergency kit, they got the first aid kit, which is a must-have for every car. You don't have to call a doctor to get something as simple as doxycycline. It's in the kit. You got 48 hours from when a tick bites you, okay, to possibly getting Lyme disease, which is uncurable and also is debilitating. A horrible, horrible disease. And what's great about this is you get a tick bite, you pop a doxy, you're going to be good. Even if you get Lyme disease, it's gone. That among many other things. So I recommend to everyone, we only promote things on this program that we believe in and that we've tried, and the wellness company for all of their products. I just cannot say enough. And as I understand it, they're going to start their own telehealth business really
Nice.
soon. So you will have that team of amazing doctors, at your fingertips. So go to twc.health and type promo code unrestricted. When you check out, you'll see promo code or discount code right there to get 10% off your entire order. Do it today. Look, better to have it and not need it, as they say, than to need it and not have it. Because do you really think you're going to find that doctor to get you the right stuff within 48 hours? Not in New York, you're not. So again, wellness companies, go twc.health, type in promo code unrestricted. And you're also supporting this show when you do that. We really appreciate it. So, and you'll appreciate it too. Be prepared always. JJ, what's going on with Angela Chao? And I want to say on the lead in, I apologize, JJ. I was a China expert snob because JJ's like, we got to talk about Angela Chao. And I was like, you mean Elaine Chao? And he's like, no, I mean Angela Chao. Who's Angela Chao, JJ?
Angela Chao is the former CEO, billionaire CEO of Foremost Group. Her father runs Foremost Group that we talked about as a giant shipping magnet that bequeaths millions, 25 millions to Elaine Chao, who is the wife of Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell never does or says anything negative about China. And that's what we're talking about today. Angela Chao died on February, I want to make sure I get this absolutely right, February 11th in a ranch-style house, in a ranch in Johnson City, Texas. It's near Austin. She had an accident and drove her car into a lake and drowned. Did you hear about this? The daughter of a giant shipping magnate in China. She lives in America, Harvard grad, billionaire, and the wife, the sister of the most powerful senator in America. And you hear nothing.
And the daughter of one of the most powerful men in the world, as I understand.
Yes. And it just got swept under the rug. No one talked about it. You and I heard this, Brian, when it came out. We were like, whoa, time out. This is a major story. And everyone said, it's just an accident, move on. Mitch McConnell didn't even announce it for like days and weeks after she died.
So weird. And you know what's really weird about it, JJ, is the legacy media hates Elon Musk. And apparently she drove into the lake in a Tesla. Now, normally any accident with a Tesla, the legacy media is going to be all over. Oh my God, we got to shut down Tesla. We got to, blah, blah, blah. Nothing at all. Nothing. And here's where it gets weirder, JJ. I was doing a little research of my own on this, and I went to, let me see if I can find it. So I went to this one page, and it was something like interesting facts about Elaine Chao, and I went to it, and it's not there. It's gone. I was like, so the website disappeared. So it's Larimer County. I went to the Google search results, and it said a startling insight into the details and aftermath video. Click here to link full viral video link. LarimerCounty.gov. It's a strange headline for Larimer County. You click on that, and there's nothing there. Page not found. So then further down on the Google search results, as you can see here, watch viral video, Angela Chao car accident. That's under the Internet Archive. I click on that, and guess what? Item not available. That means it was archived, but you're not allowed to look at it. This is a cover up. I don't know why. I know Peter Schweizer's book comes out tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. But I've just really just started diving into the details of this. I will say this: in my so my master's degrees in criminal justice and criminology. When I was studying that, I studied at Boston University, which has a excellent criminal justice program because you're learning from cops and commissioners, and really good program. But one thing, we always looked at two things when there was a crime: victimology, criminology. Okay, so victimology is a study of the victims. Usually you're looking at victimology in when there's multiple homicides or multiple victims. Okay, do they all match the same profile? Or women with long blonde hair being targeted, kind of like the was the guy there, the Zodiac killer, and all the women cut off their hair. And then you look at the criminology, like, okay, how was the crime perpetrated? How was the crime executed, if there was a crime? What's weird about this one is that everyone's only talking about Elaine Chao. It's kind of like victimology, but not. They're talking about her achievements and everything like that, but no one's talking about the fact that, wait a minute, this woman drove her car into a lake and they couldn't get it open, and the media's not attacking Elon Musk for a car that could be unsafe that he produced. Everyone just wants it to go away. What were your thoughts when you first saw this story, JJ?
My first thought was, what? She died in an accident on her property or on someone else's property near her ranch in a lake?
Who does that?
Drove a car in there? I mean, you drive your car in a lake, you just open the door and you jump out, right? You just jump out. And then it disappeared. Like it did. I'm like, this is the sister-in-law of one of the most powerful politicians in America. She's a billionaire. It's not like she's his sister-in-law and she's just whatever, average, right? She's a billionaire. And then it just disappears. And then the article pops up again on New York Post, and it quotes the sheriff as saying, quote, "This incident was not a typical accident." What? And you're right. There is a cover-up. Why? I don't know. But nothing makes sense, Brian. As in everything else that is going on in the world, it makes no sense. But what I'm glad is that you're going to tackle this from a different perspective on your Wednesday broadcast.
Absolutely.
Sure it is. I'm absolutely
and think about this.
positive.
What else was happening in Texas up until, what was it, February? Weren't they trying to get rid of that very same AG?
Mm-hmm.
Ken Paxton.
Yep.
Yeah.
Get rid of him. Schweitzer's book's coming out about Chinese and how McConnell just allows Americans to die. Borders out of control. Donald Trump's about to come into office and will shake him down like no one's ever seen. And then his sister-in-law dies and we hear nothing. McConnell looks like a zombie, like literally a zombie. And I agree with you what we talked about before. When he retires in November, I don't see him living very long after that. He'll have an accident or he'll die in his sleep.
Well, I was talking about
Biden. You're going to cover this.
Yeah.
What?
No, Biden, you mean? Because I think McConnell's gone. Didn't he leave? Didn't he step down?
No, he's leaving in November. Think of that,
Oh,
Brian.
he announced
it.
Hey,
I'm leaving in November. Hey, dude, it's effing March. Get the hell out of here. You don't even know what planet you're on. You're glitching like an NPC in a bad TV show or glitching like you're playing on my basketball team. You're an NPC. Incredible. But I'm glad
they've got something planned for November, man. November.
Something's
Why
coming.
November? Yeah, they're gonna have a contingency for either win or lose. Something bad is coming. And Look, let me. I'll just say this one last thing, JJ. There's a reason why we look at everything. We look at the border. We look at the invasion. We look at the Chinese connections. We're looking at, Angela Chao. We're going to look at Bing Liu murder, which I think is a murder from UPMC. We'll get into that. Another Chinese researcher who died under mysterious circumstances after announcing that he had new data on the COVID virus. Okay, this is in end of April, beginning of May 2020, and he dies at the hands of another guy from the Chinese Academy of Sciences. And the Pittsburgh police rule it as a love triangle gone bad. Okay, no history of violence for either man. Oh, the other guy, of course, committed suicide in his car. None of the neighbors heard the shots. We got to look at all of these things because everyone needs to start investigating everything and calling it out, because it might not seem like you're not going to stop the train, okay, but you're pulling up rivets on the train track with every single thing you expose. And take it from a guy who was in the intel community. Okay, people start exposing covert operations, whether they're good. I mean, all the ones I was on were good intention. They're for the security of this nation. But if we're in another country and people start saying, hey, I think this is going on, we've got to spend money and resources to basically keep that thing going. And then enough people start shedding light on things, it really, really becomes a problem for the bad guys. So keep shedding the light on it and keep listening and have these conversations.
Well, okay, so this is how we're going to do the show on Unrestricted Invasion from now on. I love the format. Brian and I are going to be together on Monday. Tuesday, I'm going to do a deep dive on the show on some particular topic. Brian's going to do the same thing. And then on Thursday, we're going to come back together and talk about what we have done with current events that's going on, which is great. So just give you an example. This week, tomorrow on Tuesday, I'm going to talk to a retired Border Patrol agent that was a chaplain and created the chaplain project right now and is growing it. And he's going to talk to me for an hour about the mindset of the United States Border Patrol. It is Border Patrol agents, and it is. I thought it was a great interview. And then on Wednesday, you're going to do a deep dive on China. So I think it's
actually
great.
I'm going to do a deep dive on Angela, on it really quickly. Angela Chao, because you put the hooks in me. And what I'm going to do while I do this is I'm going to explain to the audience how I go about running an investigation, where you start, how to organize yourself so you can actually make progress and get actionable intelligence. That actionable intelligence means creating a case that you can serve to the authorities on a silver platter. And if they don't act on it, get a grand jury investigation. So, and then Thursday we come together again. We're going to discuss our deep dives. Monday, I think we're going to try to have a guest on Mondays as well, as much as we can, and we'll see how it goes.
All right. I look forward to it, brother. Wife's calling, dinner bell's ringing. My son's happy. It's time to eat.
Congratulations to your team again. And, we look forward to the next season.
All right, brother.
of your basketball. So,
I'll call you. Talk to you soon. Bye, man.
Sounds good. All right. Bye-bye.